Hey everyone, I've heard in the past that maybe Wild Attack and Desperate Attack in the Savage Worlds RPG might be a little bit overpowered. Some people feel that way. Now, I don't know if I agree, and I think I'll talk about that today, because I think Dwight is probably right on this one. False.
Savage World, one of the best games today.
Hey everyone, it's Carl with Tabletop Tango. Look at the bubbles, do the stuff. We'd love your support, like, subscribes, especially subscriptions. They've kind of fallen off. There's got to be a lot more Savage Worlds players out there who are watching the channel, so please subscribe. All it does is notify you when there's new videos. You don't have to watch them, but at least it notifies you, and we get to see the numbers go up, which is lots and lots of fun. So anyway, what am I talking about today? I'm talking about wild attacks and desperate attacks and whether they're overpowered. And this is an opinion piece, all right? We all have our opinion, and you can disagree with me, and that's perfectly fine. But here's my opinion of it, and here's what I think. So let's start off by really recognizing and lauding the Savage Worlds RPG for all the options it gives in combat. It's not just swing and hit. It's not just I attack, you attack, I attack. There's tests, there's support, there's wild attack, there's desperate attack, you can use multi-attack. There's so many cool things that you can do while you're doing combat. And so these are just a couple of options that are possible. You don't have to use them. And are they overpowered, I guess, is the question. Let's answer it. Let's take a look. So let's first start off with Desperate Attack. Desperate Attack's a relatively new addition, to be honest. The original printing of Suede did not have Desperate Attack. I think I encountered it when I got Deadlands Lost Colony. That's where I first read about it, and it's been in other companions, and now it's in the 5th printing, and it's now a standard part of the Suede rulebook. So what is Desperate Attack? Desperate attacks are frantic efforts to hit a target at the expense of damage. The attacker adds +2 or +4 to any fighting roll and subtracts the like amount from damage if he hits. This can be determined per attack before rolling and can't be combined with wild attack, which is good because that would be crazy to have the wild attack bonuses offset the desperate attack bonuses or penalties. So it has to be before rolling, so keep that in mind. You have to make that determination. You can't decide that you're desperate attacking when you just missed the parry by a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about that. So when that desperate attack happens, you get to roll +2 or +4. So that is a pretty good bonus from attacking a parry standpoint, because a lot of mooks, you think about their parry's in the 5 to 7 range, and so if you're a fighter and you've got a D8 in your fighting, you are going to get an average of about a 4.5, right? Or 4 to 5 kind of area. So it's really great to get that extra little oomph to get over their parry so that you can attack. So now that's, hey, we're always getting close, especially with the +4. You could really maybe even get to the point where you have a bonus damage, which then would pretty much offset the -4 on average. The D6 on average would maybe get rid of that -4 penalty. But the point is, that damage is a big deal when you're looking at the toughness. So let's look at some of the toughnesses, right? So I just grabbed some creatures at random. So like a Bugbear's parry 6, toughness 9. A Hellhound, parry 5, toughness 7. We've got things like, let's say our Ogre's parry 6, toughness 12. So you can see that the parries are in the 6, 5 kind of time. So a desperate attack really does help drive up that ability to hit the parry. But now you take away that damage, you take away -2 or -4 in damage, that can be a very big deal because the toughnesses you see aren't in the same range as the parries are. They're higher. And so if, let's say a fighter has a D8 in fighting and a D6 weapon, so a D6 weapon, so you got D8 plus D6, kind of on average, you're looking at about 8 points or so. And don't quote me on all the math. I'm not a statistician. But so you're in the 8 range, so you -2, and suddenly now you're down to 6 on average without those explosions. And now you're not even getting to the toughness of the Bugbear. You're not able to hit that Hellhound, which should have been super easy to do. Even an Orc that's got a toughness of 9, you've kind of handicapped yourself with respect to that. So is Desperate Attack a negative or does so desperate attack has a negative. So is it overpowered? I mean, I don't think so. If you look at it, it really doesn't seem like it is overpowered, because you really are taking a hit on your damage because of that penalty, and that makes a lot of difference for creatures that have reasonably high toughness. Obviously, if you're going against something that has very low toughness, desperate attack would almost make no difference then, and that's maybe just a generic mook who's not very tough. Okay, fine, I get it. That may feel like it's overpowered, but chances are, if the mook's like that, you're not going to need to use a desperate attack anyway, because you're going to be able to hit them and take them out easily anyway. So so it's kind of interesting that somebody would think desperate attack is overpowered, and maybe I'm completely off base here. I'm a rules as written kind of guy, so I'm looking at this as being maybe well play tested. It kind of works out. So I'm going to say again, this one's false, that it's overpowered. If you disagree, and that's absolutely okay, give a comment, tell why you think your math, or why you think it's overpowered and what you think about it. I would love to read those, because again, we all learn together when we get a chance to comment and talk about things. So now let's move on to Wild Attack, which is probably a little more controversial. So in Wild Attack, it says sometimes a desperate character, may want to throw a caution to the wind and attack with everything he's got. A Wild Attack adds +2 to characters' fighting attacks and the resulting damage rolls for the turn, but he's invulnerable until the end of his next turn, not this one. Wild attacks can be used with multiple attacks, such as multi-actions or the frenzy and sweep edges. So I think the fact that it can be used with multi-actions and frenzy and sweep is probably another one of those things where it feels like it's a little overpowered. So how is this overpowered? So +2 to attack is obviously a big deal. We just got done talking about that with desperate attack. That really helps get over some of those parries that we'll find. Now we're talking about extra damage. So now not only are we getting easier ability to get past the parries, now we're driving the damage higher. So we'll get back to our Bugbear, who's got a parry 6 and a toughness 9. A Wild Attack, that +2 is going to make it so much easier to get past that parry of 6 with your average fighting roll on, let's say you've got a D8 and you're fighting. Toughness is 9. Now if that damage is approximately 8, 7, 8 range, and you add the +2, now you are getting past that toughness. You are shaking them, or if they're already shaken, you're wounding them and taking them out of the fight. So if you look at a lot of the creatures I kind of pulled out, parry 5, toughness 9, parry 5, toughness 7, these are kind of the lower level creatures. Now, obviously, it's not going to be as powerful against creatures that have higher toughness, like a fire giant's got a toughness of 15. That ogre I mentioned has a toughness of 12, and a mature dragon, toughness of 21. So yeah, so Wild Attack might be good just because you're trying to get that +2. But then there's the negative. It's the vulnerability. So now everybody gets a +2 against you your entire round. So until the end of your next turn. So that could be a big deal for mooks who are attacking, right? Because that +2, when they've only got a D6, let's say they've got a D6 in fighting, that now makes it so it's a lot easier for them to get past your parry, and then maybe get their damage dice are going to be more equivalent to your damage dice. So like a mook who's got a D6 strength and's got a D6 weapon, well, they're now looking at decent damage potentially with an explosion. So that's a big deal, because lots of times it's hard for a mook without a wild die to get past your decent parry. That vulnerability helps. So why does it feel overpowered? I think it's because the way players often use it is when they're using Wild Attack, they tend to use it, at least I've seen, and this isn't true of everything, but lots of times they're using it when they're kind of one-on-one. They've got maybe a mook coming at them, or a lieutenant who's resilient, and so they're wild attacking, hoping to do enough damage to take them out, so that vulnerability doesn't mean anything. So as a game master, you need to build up your if you've got players who use Wild Attack all the time, you need to layer your encounters so that there's enough mooks that are in the area helping you lieutenants, so that if they go Wild Attack, that vulnerability does have to have some consequence, and it's not just doesn't matter because there's no one around to take advantage of the vulnerability. So that's part of the reason I think it feels like it's overpowered, because vulnerability doesn't play into it a lot when they're attacking like one person and they're taking them out one at a time, especially when you're leveraging frenzy and you're leveraging sweep against your mooks that are next to them, those extras. So that's why it feels overpowered, but that's an encounter design option, right? You can put the combat together in such that there's enough people that if they wild attack and are vulnerable, that vulnerable may have consequences, because now, again, the extras have a better chance of getting past their parry. And once they're past their parry, there's no downside for damage, right? So if again, your extra's using the same weapon your players are and it has a similar strength as your players, they're doing just as much damage as the players are. There's no, I don't have a wild die, so therefore I have a harder time to hit. Once I hit, my damage is going to be just the same as any party members who's got the same weapon. So that really makes a difference. So wild attack feels overpowered sometimes, I guess, because the way players use it and when they take advantage of it. You as a game master or an adventure designer or whatever, you can take advantage of the fact that there can be multiple people who can take advantage of the vulnerability and not just let the players kind of get away with attacking one person who's out in the open and then there's no one around to take advantage of that negative that comes along with wild attack. So anyway, again, false. Wild attack is not overpowered. So once again, wild attack, desperate attack, two great combat options that your players can take advantage of. And then again, as a game master, you can take advantage of them too. So if you think wild attack makes a lot of sense and is overpowered, well, that's a good chance for you to use it and demonstrate the power as well. Honestly, I don't do that a lot where I use those combat maneuvers against players. Maybe I should, but it's just not something I do because I don't do that a lot unless it's really does need a desperate attack or they're at their last leg and they really do need to do a wild attack. They just don't do it every turn just to do it. But that's a play style that I have, and it doesn't mean that it's the right style at all. I think you could be a little more, pounding on your players and teaching them that wild attack and desperate attack are great things that the bad guys can use too. So that would be awesome. So anyway, that is desperate attack, wild attack. Maybe they're overpowered in your opinion. Drop a note in the comments again. Let me know what you think. And I will see you next time. Oh, but I forgot. Look at the bubbles, do the stuff. Please like, subscribe, and support. We like doing this, and everything we get, we go right back into the channel with hosting, with products, with everything. So appreciate that. So once again, I'm Carl with Tabletop Tango, and we will catch you in the next
World, one of the best games of the day. Savage World, Benny enhance my play. Savage World, different setting in